British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has pledged to bring back national service if his party, the Conservative Party, win the UK election on the 4th of July.
We will introduce a bold new model of national service for 18-year-olds.
So as a former Royal Marines commando having served in Iraq and Afghanistan, I wanted to give you my thoughts. Is this a good idea? Do I agree? What could this look like? And do I think that this will be a positive thing for the UK? Now, the first thing that we should probably look at here is what exactly will this actually look like? Getting some specifics and clarity on what the young generation will actually be doing is key. According to Al Jazeera, the proposed national service scheme is not the same as conscription, where people are legally bound to join the military for a period of time. It instead gives young adults the option to choose between enrolling in a year-long military training program or carrying out civil service one weekend every month over the same period of time. According to the proposal, the first option would require applying for one of up to 30,000 selective military placements required for teenagers deemed the brightest and the best in areas like logistics, cybersecurity, procurement and others. Therefore, only a small minority of 18-year-olds would actually take part in any military training. Okay, so straight off the bat, if Al Jazeera have got that right and that is correct, that is not remotely the same as what a lot of people thought it was, right? Which is every single flipping person from the age of like 18 to 19 is going to have to join the military in some capacity, wrenched away from their homes, fucking shaved heads all round, and that's you for the next 12 months. It's not the case at all. So conscription and national service, I think it's very important to recognise that this is nowhere near, even if this was to move forward, doesn't sound like it's anywhere near as radical as a lot of people would think. Okay, so some of the arguments for and against, some of the arguments against from the Labour Party are that the effects of this on the economy are unclear. That's always the case. I think that's a bit of a shit argument generally, because I think that unless Mystic Meg's going to pop back with a crystal ball, no one really knows what's going to happen with the economy. I think that's been proved many times. So the effect of anything on the economy are unclear, which means I don't really think that's a particularly powerful argument against this. But on the other side of it, I will say that I am absolutely a capitalist, in all honesty. I think that I have owned businesses for 10 years. The fair regulated competition is fantastic. I think it allows for a little bit more kind of individualistic pursuit, and I think individuals and society as a whole are always going to be better off where individuals are incentivized to work harder because they get the results. And that's the kind of thing that flipping stimulates the movement of money, incentivizes hard work and raises everything from there. And I think that most people, especially if you are watching my fucking channel, would agree that the insane wokeness of the modern Western world, giving everyone a participation trophy for taking part, or 2 free therapy sessions if you didn't get the A star in class that you so truly believe that you deserved, hasn't worked. I think we can all agree that that hasn't worked. So would I welcome at least the idea of something that might unify and build resilience in the younger generation, a generation that most people on the planet agree is probably less resilient and a little bit more potentially emotionally non-intelligent than pretty much any other generation in history? Yeah, I think that putting together something that might unify them and build some robustness would actually be fucking fantastic. If you are Gen Z or Gen A or whatever, I do have a slightly different perspective on your generation to a lot of other people, in that I believe, unlike a lot of other people in my generation, I'm 36 now, I don't judge you for being in the situation that you're in, because it's my generation that fucking raised you. We made them weak, dependent and non-resilient. You can't wrap humans in cotton wool for 25 years and then be annoyed at them that their skin is soft when you finally take it off. It's like giving a toddler heroin for 2 decades and then being annoyed at them that they're an addict at the end of it. So if we're looking at the broader concept of would something that both unifies and improves the resilience of the younger generation, is that something that I believe would be generally, in generalities, we'll get to the specifics in a second, but in generalities beneficial for the young people of the UK right now? Yes. Another reason I think that some kind of communal service would be a good idea is because I believe that now we live in a very fragmented society. Get people mixing with other people that they usually wouldn't. I think this is huge. Different races, people from different parts of the country, and in my opinion, most importantly, different classes, all doing the same job, stripped of any accolades, achievements, status, all doing the same thing. The only currency you have would be your own character. A bunch of northerners who grew up in a council estate might end up being like best friends with these posh little dudes from southwest London, but this might just not happen without a very deliberate environment for a friendship like this to develop, where they're stripped of all the things that might cause that, first impression and kind of preemptive judgment that might prevent them from actually ever bloody interacting. I grew up in 2 or 3 different towns in the southeast of England, and when I joined the Royal Marines when I was 20, you know, making some best friends with some people that lived in, you know, that grew up in Milton Keynes or in Yorkshire or Scotland or North Wales or whatever. Obviously there are like slight differences in the way that we grew up and the kind of things that we were exposed to, and it was flipping amazing. And it did make me realise right then that I just exist. I mean, I was only 20, but that I'd existed in a bit of an echo chamber and just this information bubble. And I think that's even more insulated now, because although we think we're exposed to so many more types of different people, I think that one of the things that the internet has actually done is reinforce our own echo chamber more. Because if we are a straight white male who likes Pokemon and anime, you don't even have to leave your house and you can connect with 1,000 other people in the world just like you. And that, unfortunately, in my opinion, will actually prevent you from meeting more people. I think it will make you more narrow-minded. So I think something like this could be a really useful tool for actually kind of like peeling down the layers of people's cognitive and sometimes even unconscious biases. So people's usual kind of clothes choices or any sign of wealth or any status or anything like this, all of that stuff becomes completely irrelevant when you're always put in the same uniform. Everyone who's ever served will tell you this. You're all wearing the same uniform with the same haircut, and everything in your life up to that point is kind of put on pause. The only currency is character. Trademarked. You heard it here first on this channel, this video. Thank you. So let's have a look at whether or not people would want to do it. Do I believe that most young people at that age would want to do it? No, I believe that most people would not want to do it. Otherwise, they would be people who would be joining the military anyway. And the fact that we're having a huge recruitment crisis in the British military at the moment would suggest that overall that's not the case and people don't want to do it. Does it matter what they want at that age when they are 18? In my opinion, no. I think one of the only ways that you can make this fair, though, is to level the playing field and basically have to make it kind of like this is an applicable system for every single flipping person at that age, because otherwise if half the people get drafted into national service where they're building bridges and or you know flipping doing whatever in the military for like 12 months and the other half are able to kind of continue to pursue their careers and get a jump start on their ladder or whatever, then that is unfair. The only way to level the playing field is to make it absolutely mandatory, in my opinion, and actually to change it from national service to legal conscription. But we'll talk about that more in a second. And it also sounds brutal, but what I'm going to say is this. If you're 20 and you believe that you have absolute conviction that you know what is best for you long term, you're probably wrong, okay? Because if you actually believe the same thing at 50 as you do right now when you're 20, you probably haven't grown much, right? So just acknowledging the fact that you might not know what the best thing for you is, it's a bitter pill to swallow, especially when you're kind of, you know, you're filled with piss and vinegar and you're a young, tenacious guy. But the fact of the matter is that's true. And if it is just a year and it is for everyone, and as an example, if everyone that ever did it said that it was really productive, maybe they might have a point. Let's now look at the paradigm of national pride. So this is an interesting one for me, right? Because I am British through and through. I have grown up in the UK. I spent the first 35 years of my life living there, and I have fought for my country. However, I have always actually quite disliked the UK for a number of reasons and felt almost not even neutral about it, kind of the opposite of national pride for a long time. In addition to the weather, which is obviously shit 9 months of the year, and for those of you that say Dartmoor on a sunny day is as beautiful as the Alps or the Rocky Mountains or a Californian beach, you're a fucking idiot. You're wrong. But moving past the weather, I actually really disliked the ethos. I think we're change averse generally. I think we're completely against progression or iteration in any way. We're so far away from being emotionally expressive, and the stiff upper-lipped Brit thing that so many people still have has led us to finding other people behaving excitedly or enthusiastic or happy as overly American. And I hate that. Like, fucking hate it. The idea that an expression of happiness is not only something that we don't want to do ourselves, but something that we feel uncomfortable in witnessing in someone else is fucking lunacy to me. Like, genuinely, witnessing, seeing someone just experience happiness and joy is something that as British people we avoid. That to me is absolute madness. And that is one of the reasons that I have spent most of my adult life disliking the UK. It kind of feels as though, and we're so, I don't know, we're so change averse. It feels like we've just kind of stopped. It feels like to me, it kind of felt like the world is happening out there. places like America or Australia, like there's really busy bits of Asia that are like really cool, blah, 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 all of these different things, all of these crazy different places, and they all have their own vibe. And England is just this grumpy old man that's just watching the rest of the world go by. That to me is how it felt growing up. And I tried to convince myself to stop feeling like that about the UK, and it just never worked. I just continued to feel like that all the way up until I was in my early 30s, and I was like, right, well, I don't think it's going to change. There's no point in me kind of, beating the shit out of myself trying to get it to change. I might as well just embrace the fact that that's the way that I'm wired and I have that idiosyncrasy, and make myself happier and get out, which is what I did. But if there's something that we can do to just slap that out of the UK and inject a little bit of pride and life back into England, then I'm all for it. I think there are incredible parts of being British. I think that the way that we communicate, I think our banter, I think our sense of humour is absolutely flipping on point, and I think that we are some of the global leaders in some things like that. But it just seems to be that for me on a daily basis, that stuff is like overshadowed by just the heaviness of the older generation. And the issue is young guys that are filled with piss and vinegar and are flipping, they've got some tenacity about them and they want to go out and they want to do stuff. I feel as though life in the UK beats you down so fucking early that they just get too tired trying to be ambitious and trying to be happy. So if there's something like national service that would just be this melting pot of young men and women, stir them all up, get them spending some time with each other, breaking down some flipping cognitive biases about other people from different parts of the UK or whatever, I think the net positive effect for that would be unbelievable, both for the individuals during that time, for the rest of their life, and therefore obviously for the country as a whole. Will this national service be that thing that I think will be beneficial? I don't know. But at the very least, I think the concept of it is worth continuing to investigate, because I think it could be a step in the right direction. One of my concerns on this is that rumour has it that Big Rishi has basically suggested this because he's lagging behind Labour in the polls. So that kind of got me thinking, but is it something that the current sitting government right now actually think is a good idea and actually will help? Or is it just some random, because there's not really that much information on what the bloody hell he actually wants to do? Or is it just this idea that he'd throw out there to try to kind of increase his kind of position in the opinion polls right now? And if the latter, if that is the case, that's a bit of a shame, because it's something that I think should be taken seriously. And I think the idea of putting something together where you get all of these people that basically put their lives on pause, and again, it's across the board, it happens for everyone, there's no way of getting around it, so you don't have to feel as though life is passing you by because you always knew this was coming and blah blah blah. If that is the case, I think that would be so incredibly beneficial that it would be a shame if it's only being mentioned because someone effectively feels as though they're currently in silver. So my conclusion, I have actually had a theory on this for a while, way before kind of the Prime Minister brought this up a couple of weeks ago or months ago, whatever. I have an idea that one of the things that could make this a positive for the economy as opposed to negative for the economy, like directly, is to not necessarily have national service be something that is exactly military focused, but still a year, you go live on a camp, you're in fucking dorms, you do all of this stuff, you hate it for the first 10 days, we don't give a shit, you're part of this fucking country, you do your fucking bit, blah, 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 all of these things. But as opposed to performing military duties, which realistically, unless we're at war, are an economic liability, what you do is you give them a sense of purpose and make them move towards something that is actually more prosperous for the country, like building schools, cleaning hospitals, building fucking bridges, something that is like almost makes it sound like a Labour camp. And maybe my idea of this isn't actually too far away from that, but I think that would be incredible. They take pride in their work because they would actually get to see that what they're doing is moving towards something. That's one of sometimes the difficulties in military service when you're not at war, especially if you're also not there voluntarily. You kind of train to do something, but then you don't really ever actually do it after training, and you just kind of stick around and play pretend for a little bit. Whereas if you were doing something, positive for like the infrastructure, you were fixing the roads or building pipes or something, all of these crazy ideas, but at least you'd actually see your work go towards something. Also, if we had it as one of the objectives to get people out of their own communities and working in other communities, so part of the rule as an example would be there's a certain radius away from your hometown, then I think it would be incredibly incredibly beneficial. Obviously, the only downside is there is an enormous operational undertaking, but I think it would be very worth it by having young people become stronger, more able to be productive and beneficial in society. And for the sake of 1 year, I think this could permanently positively improve a lot of young people. And whether or not 18-year-olds want to do it at the time that they are 18, that is not the only thing that we should be taking into account. We need to take into account, do we believe that we net positive for the person in the end? Because realistically, 18-year-olds might be stupid. I'm 36. I acknowledge that I'm probably stupid and I don't know what's fucking best for me. Let's stop treating children like gods and acknowledge that they are just baby mammals and they might not know what's best for them long term. So my idea of national service, I obviously think it would be very net positive, and I think it's the best idea that I've heard, which is why it is my idea. Positive infrastructural change, things that the country actually needs. Get all of these people doing this, get someone from Norfolk, someone from flipping, Cornwall, and put them in Lancashire and get them doing some stuff that they might not necessarily want to do in the moment, but is actually productive for other people. They will develop a level of capability. They will develop this internal sense of, I am actually useful at something. They will see the result of their own hard manual work. They'll get to know other people. They'll get to know other areas. It'll open their mind. It will build resilience. And I am extremely confident that if you interviewed all of those people 10 years on, they would acknowledge that they absolutely didn't want to do it on their 18th birthday. But now that they're like 28, 29, 30, they're so bloody glad that they did. And it's one of the best things they've ever done. My honest prediction is that if we actually did have the conviction to move forward with this, stuck to it for 10 years so that we could actually get some data on the long-term benefits of this, both for the individual and the country and blah, 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 and all of these things, right? I think that people would say it's one of the best things they've ever done. The problem is I don't think that any government has the balls to actually progress with an idea like this, because I think the frustration aversion is too high on the priority list of any of these guys. So there we go, guys. It's interesting. I think that it would be good. As with anything, it's not a concrete answer. I think that it would be good if we did it properly. Very keen to know your thoughts as well. If you agree, please put that down in the comment section below. If you don't agree and you have a different idea, or there's a particular reason why you think that this plan would be false or whatever, then please put that down in the comment section below as well. As always, keen to hear your thoughts, team. If you have not yet done so, make sure you subscribe. And as always, stay strong, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I'll see you all in the next video.